If you are, for instance, one of these people who maybe you have a monkey mind and you find it really, really difficult to sit quietly and meditate, then meditation is going to cause you to have a stress response, in which case that's not going to be the greatest vagus nerve exercise for you. So we've got those top-down, bottom-up approaches with vagus nerve stimulation. And when you look it up online, there's basically so many things. There's dozens and dozens of different ways. So anything that calms your mind down, any sort of tools. I teach obviously havening techniques a lot. Some people are familiar with EFT. Breathing exercises are more of the body response. But obviously meditation, I mentioned, when people can't meditate because it's something that you actually do need to practice and build up to. One of the best things you can do is just sit there and observe your breath. And you don't even have to manipulate your breath in any particular way. You can manipulate your breath by slowing your exhale down, and that's going to have a profound effect on engaging your vagus nerve. But even if you want to get into meditation, and if one of these people just even gets irritated at even the mention of it, then one great thing to do would be to just start with a few minutes at a time, and then you can build it up by literally just observing your breath. You going in and you're focusing on the texture of the breath, how your body sort of ribs expand, your chest is rising and falling. You focus on that. And that is pretty much like a foundational level meditation. So people will have different sort of preconceptions about meditation, but really, if you want entry level, that's what you do. And that is easier for people because even when they have very, very active minds, which, by the way, in itself will be stressful to the body, and then you can start to rewire the brain and the nervous system, and over time, everything will start to settle and calm down, and you will be able to access that ventral vagus side much more easily. But everything is a matter of practice, everything. So when you go online and you see all the different vagus nerve exercises that you can do, when you ask me what works, what I'm trying to say here is what works for the individual. So out of this whole list of, like I mentioned, the different things, in addition to that, you've got interacting with nature, interacting with animals, interacting with people, but only if that's something that is pleasurable and calming to you. So if I say, go into nature to stimulate your vagus nerve, and you have a phobia of insects and you go into a forest and you completely freaked out, you are not activating your vagus nerve, you're activating fight or flight. You may have to deal with that phobia in order to then fully utilize our connection with nature, which is obviously highly healing, as we know. But these are the things to pay attention to. So I encourage everybody who engages, who thinks this is really good, I'm going to give this a try, I'm going to try and bring my vagus nerve online or strengthen the tone, etc., to really look in and really feel for what is good and right for you, because what is right for one person is not necessarily going to be right for another person, and it's certainly not necessarily going to be right for you. So even though people in different blogs and different interviews and things that you see online will be swearing by cold showers, that may not be right for you at this time. If you, for example, have had chronic symptoms for a long time, this is one of the things that we need to look out for. And you've been spending a lot of time in freeze response, in the sort of shutdown mode. And I know loads and loads and loads of people who have actually caused themselves setbacks by going with those more, I don't want to say aggressive, but what we call them is hormetic. So those methods that stimulate your vagus nerve indirectly via the fight and flight response, such as cold showers, such as infrared sauna, such as exercise, those obviously are superb, because over time you're causing this adaptation within your system. You become more resilient, you build resiliency. This is all great, it's all very positive, but it's not necessarily right for everybody straight away. So like I said, particularly people who have had things like chronic fatigue, chronic Lyme, fibromyalgia, all of those sort of conditions where they do spend a lot of time in this sort of shutdown mode, when you speak to them, they don't actually identify so much with fight or flight. They go, well, I don't, when I said earlier, right, that we spend most of that time in fight or flight, and they'll go, I don't actually feel that. I feel shut down most of the time, because they may be spending most of their days and even at night, when if not they're not sleeping well, in freeze response, which is also not good, right? Because it's also survival. So if we spend most of our time, I shall rephrase what I said at the beginning, in either of the survival modes, which is fight, flight, or freeze, if we spend most of the time in either of those, that's when the ventral vagus nerve, our rest and digest, is not going to be engaging quickly enough, frequently enough, and so on. So this is a really, really, really important to, if you are one of these people who have been dealing with chronic illness, chronic symptoms like this, if you start vagus nerve work, I would certainly encourage you to start with really gentle things, such as slow breathing, observing your breath, but also I did say that you can actually manipulate the breath, and you can, if you want to engage the vagus nerve directly, you would draw the air in through your nose if possible, and then your exhale just needs to be longer than your inhale. So you then breathe out, ideally through pursed lips, and you really empty all the air from your chest and abdominal cavity. And so you go, and you go all the way, squish as much as you can. And then the next thing that's going to happen is that you naturally want to take another breath in, if possible, through the nose. But we're not going to force anything. This is still quite a natural way of breathing. But the key here to this particular this variation is that you extending your exhale as much as possible and really squish the air out, right? So that would be one. But if you don't want to do that, like I said, you're observing the breath, that's still going to be very calming for the system. Now, what to look out for, even with the breathing, is not to do things straight away. I'm talking for people who have been dealing with chronic symptoms for a long time in particular. If you want to try things like breath of fire, which is a very activating breath, or something like Wim Hof breathing. People may be familiar with Wim Hof's work. Again, very good for a longer term adaptation, but people can really shut themselves down and cause themselves to have a lot of anxiety and even complete panic if they do this sort of breathing, very activating sort of breathing too soon. So if you're good with the slow, calm breathing and you want to progress and you want to see how you do that, I suggest that, of course, it's not about introducing fear into anything. I definitely don't want that for anybody. I'm the opposite of that. All I'm saying is just be conscious, be mindful, always observe how your body is responding to what you're doing, and monitor and then react accordingly. So if one day you feel a little bit better and you want to try something a little bit more activating, like Wim Hof breathing or the breath of fire, you just do that a few times and then just see how you feel and leave it for 24 to 48 hours. If there's no ill reactions, then perhaps you can do that now, and perhaps you can even build it up, and then you can really bring on this really another level. This is just like another level. This is you stepping it up, but stepping it up needs to be mindful and cautious. So it's not about fear, it's about being mindful. I hope that makes sense. I'm stressing this a lot only because, like I said, people can just see, wow, cold showers, I need to be doing cold showers. Cold showers is another one, and infrared saunas is another one. This is also a hermetic method. So it causes you to adapt positively over a period of time. But if you are spending a lot of your time in shutdown and you jump into a freezing cold shower, you may not feel so great. Another one that can be a little bit much for people who have been sick for a long time is things like gargling. Just because it needs to be vigorous. Anything that actually, in fact, activates this part of your body here and vibrates it, anything will activate anything like that. So singing, humming, gargling, all of those things will activate the vagus nerve. But again, you have to be a little bit mindful what you're choosing. If you like singing and humming and it makes you feel good, or maybe you like some sound healing and respond well to that, then great. Always go with what resonates with you and what makes you feel good, because ultimately dropping into this ventral vagus response should be the feeling of, that feels really nice. It feels really good. If it causes you to feel anything else, if you're feeling freaked out, anxious, annoyed, basically pissed off, no, you need to change to something else. So I hope that helps. And I hope that makes sense.